Let's give a minute for everyone to get their seats. Well, welcome everyone to this General Committee meeting for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2016. Mr. Clerk at 7:02. And I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd first like to ask if there's a declaration of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. And seeing none, we'll move to the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? As amended. Moved by Councillor Peary, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So we'll move to determination of the items requiring separate discussion, and I will begin on my right with Councillor Maracas.
Nothing right now, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Gardner?
Could you come back to me, please?
Absolutely. Councillor Abel?
Item 5.
Item 5.
Item 6. Item 14.
None of mine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Councillor Humphreys? Mayor Dow?
Item 4, please, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Kim?
Mine's been pulled, thank you.
Councillor Peary? Councillor Maracas? Do you want me to read back what we have?
Yeah.
We have 4, 5, 6, and 14. Councillor Gardner?
11, 12, 13, and 15.
Pardon me, 11, 12, 13,
15.
and 15. Councillor Thompson?
And my apologies. Did 4 and 8 get called?
8 has not.
8, please.
So I'll just recap then. We have items 4, 5, 6, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Just about everything. Okay. Thank you, members of council. So we'll move to adoption of the items not requiring separate discussion. Can we have a motion to move that? Moved by Councillor Peary, seconded by Councillor Gardner. All those in favor, or is there any comments? I guess not. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. We'll move then to delegations for this evening. So we have 2 delegations. The first is Mr. Stephen Kimmerer of Sport Aurora. And Mr. Kimmerer, just want to let you know that you have 5 minutes, and we all know your name, but perhaps state it for those who don't.
All right, thank you. You're going to start me when I start, okay? It's going to be close. My name is Stephen Kimmerer. I'm here tonight representing the Board of Directors of Sport Aurora in support of the recommendation made by Mr. Downey that is before you this evening regarding the implementation of the sport plan. I thank the Council for allowing me to address you tonight. The recommendation is to enter into service agreement with Sport Aurora to deliver year 1 priorities of the sport plan. Sport Aurora has been working closely with Mr. Downey and his staff to bring forward this proposal. We feel the goals of the sport plan are in the best interests of sport and the community at large, and that Sport Aurora, being a multi-sport organization that represents over 90% of all sport organizations in this town, has proven its ability to deliver on what it promises. We have the knowledge, skill, and expertise among us to accomplish what is in the proposal. We also recognize that this is seed funding designed to move the sport plan forward in year 1 only. It is our intention to demonstrate to Town Council that our organization is the right partner for success. I think you are all aware of how active Sport Aurora was in the development of the sport plan. We created a committee of sport leaders to make many recommendations, most of which were approved by you. Sport Aurora has been accomplishing many of these functions for years, and while our Trillium funding stopped last November, we have continued to deliver, relying on our reserves to continue our work. What we seek tonight is a message from you that what we have done in the past and what we intend to do in the future is valued. If it is, with your funding, we will continue to deliver our services. If there's no support, then we will do what any business does. We will regroup, reassess our priorities, and undertake what we can afford to do with the resources available. Let me describe for you what Sport Aurora has been doing in the first quarter of 2016 that relates to the sport plan. We have formed a partnership with Healthy Kids Community Challenge in order to support the town's RBC Learn to Play grant, resulting in safe, active walk-to-school program, a healthy eating for kids program, and we have trained coaches to deliver a play day scheduled for May 27th, where 600 primary school children will descend on Lambert Wilson Park. In cooperation with Parks and Recreation Department and the 2 local school boards, these children and teachers will be involved in a unique exposure to physical activity. We also supported the Mayor's task force in building Aurora as Canada's most active community and have submitted a $750,000 grant request to Trillium to fund this project for the next 3 years. If it is approved, we will execute the plan. If not, we will step back and work with the Mayor and the task force to reconsider our options. On May 4th, the first Physical Literacy Summit will be delivered at Seneca King Campus, where professionals, including municipal staff, who work with children under the age of 12 will come together to strategize how to advance physical literacy in our community. We are presently in a recruitment mode for All Kids Can Play program, having received $5,500 in funding from the Healthy Kids Community Challenge to reach out and engage children who are not financially able to participate in healthy physical activity. We have now accumulated over $20,000 in funding that is to be directly distributed to families in need, and we intend on getting those funds to worthwhile recipients. We have placed deposits and booked venues and speakers for the Breakfast of Champions and the Volunteer Recognition Luncheon. We have begun promoting and published the second issue of Play in Aurora, the town's only sports tourism magazine. We continue to support the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame with our members working on or with the Board of Governors in their mission. We continue to represent sport on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. We have begun the revamping of our website to make it a better portal for sport so newcomers to town can get all they need to involve themselves in sport and physical activity, and sport organizations can be promoted better. We're about to launch our own speaker series related to sport by bringing in experts to our sports organizations on topics such as concussion prevention and management and volunteer recruitment and retention.
Mr. Kimmer, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. We're also in the planning stages of launching a sport expo that is designed to bring sport and the community together in an interesting format that will promote and celebrate sport. This has been funded by our MPP, Chris Ballard, who is eager to help sport thrive in this manner. We are also eager to participate with the town in developing a sports tourism strategy, the marketing and sponsorship strategy, and the development of Aurora's sport policy, all identified within the sport plan. We are quite capable of bringing the voice of sport to those discussions. We just need to be asked and supported in this policy and development. Sport Aurora builds bridges, not walls. We are eager to work with the town and sport organizations to build a strong, stable sports system that is the envy of every community our size. One recommendation from the plan that was alluded to by Councillor Tom a week ago is the reconstruction of Sport Aurora as a sports council with a democratically elected board and enhanced mandate. Our Constitution was ratified in 2010, is completely inclusive. Our board is democratically elected and representative of the membership. If any organization chooses to join or not to join, that is entirely up to them and their leadership.
Mr. Kimmer, I'd ask you to wrap up if you can.
35 sports organizations in this town consider what we do to be valuable. We will continue to support them. We look forward to working with the town regarding this important sports leadership recommendation.
Mr. Kimmer, do you require any more time? Because
Done.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Is that okay, you guys? He's done? Okay. Bit of a marathon, but I appreciate and thanks for coming out, Mr. Kimmer.
I didn't take a breath the last.
It was very good. First, I'll get a motion to receive the delegation and refer to the item. Moved by Councillor Abel, seconded by Councillor Gartner. Questions or comments for Mr. Kimmer? Mayor Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kimmer, thank you for coming out. Delegating is a bit like speed dating.
It certainly is.
Got to get it in there quickly and before the bell rings and play musical chairs. First of all, I very much appreciate your passion that you bring to this. It's very beneficial for me as an elected official to see members of our community so engaged in something, so I appreciate that. And I certainly appreciate the work that you've done into putting together your response to the sports plan, and I look forward to working with you on that. The recommendation that we're looking at tonight is for a one-year contract, a one-year engagement. Have you thought, now you alluded to, but have you thought about what your organization's position would be if indeed, we do 1 year, but only 1 year, as to how that would affect you in the future. I'm just curious if you've done any thinking around that.
Well, we've done lots of thinking as far as that's concerned. Just like the Trillium Grant, it was to get things started. And now that we don't have the Trillium Grant, we need to continue. So we hope to do such a good job at delivering the first year plus that we want to come back to council next year and say, look, maybe we should be part of your regular budget, right? Like some of the other organizations are. We've put together a budget over the next 3 years that shows that our needs are going to decrease depending on how well we do in other areas. So
Mayor Dow?
that's the hope.
Okay,
That's
but just in
yep.
case it doesn't happen, you've got
Then
plan B.
we are already looking at going for more grant funding. We're looking for sponsorship with locals. We're always doing that. We just would prefer right now to get to work providing programming as opposed to spending all of our time fundraising.
Yeah, understood. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Dow. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much for coming out tonight. One of the questions as I was looking through it is that you provided a proposal in tonight's report from Mr. Downey with regards to the sport implementation plan. Should council decide to provide the money to Sport Aurora to, bring about those specific actions, is Sport Aurora comfortable working out, I guess, a plan or a specific agreement with Mr. Downey regarding those specific actions?
Absolutely, that was the whole point of it. By getting into a service agreement, there are deliverables, and those will be evaluated at the end or partway through so that we know that they're done. So Mr. Downey will be cognizant of what has happened, what needs to happen.
And I think that's, my perspective as well. I think it's great if it's clearly identified, what Sport Aurora is trying to do to further the sport plan, as well as being able to have some sort of measurable at the end of the day. So when we do have the conversation at budget time, it's clearly defined. So that's great.
It's no different than when we're working with the Trillium organization, because they ask us to report on what we've done and how we've spent the funding. So it'll be no different than that. We're quite well educated on that procedure.
Thank you. I have Councillor Kim next. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Kimmer, for presenting tonight. One of the options that was presented in the report was to hire full-time Parks and Rec staff as opposed to use the funds for Sport Aurora to continue the great work that you guys have been doing, and I'm fully in support of what Sport Aurora has done to date. It does touches on it a little bit in the report, but can you, in your words, validate why it would be best to use the funds towards Sport Aurora to continue the works that you started, as opposed to having a fresh third party, a different mind to move forward?
Well, there's a couple of points there. We fully expect that a sports development officer will be eventually hired. And so, but that's going to take you time, all right, for someone to get up to speed, to understand what's going on, the hiring process and all of that. We're here now. Now, when you do get a sports development officer, who are they going to go to help provide all of the programming and all of the manpower? They're going to come to Sport Aurora. We already do much of it anyways. So it makes a lot of sense for us to continue. And if a sport development officer finally comes in, we want to work in tandem with that person, all right? So it just makes good sense for us at this point in time to start, because if we don't, a lot of things will disappear, and we don't want that to happen.
Sure. And one other question. I reviewed your webpage and looked at the sports plan, and I don't recall a program for physically challenged persons. Is that something on the horizon, or did I miss it? It's in the report, or
It's in the sport
Okay.
plan, and it's something we have already started working with.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Any more comments or questions for the delegate? Councillor Gartner, Councillor Abel? Councillor Gartner?
Thank you very much for coming. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
I'm just, I'm not sure, everything that's in the proposal is covered under the $56,000
Yes.
that the town would be providing. So in Goal 2, focus on the needs of the athletes and sports participants. A Goal 2 under A1, there's a statement, it says, additional funding could add numbers to the training targets. So we're talking about funding that's additional to the 56.
What we're
It's
saying there
possible.
is if it's possible, but that if we want hire more people, get involved, then that funding has to come from somewhere else.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kimmer, and all those that are here today. I very much appreciate everything you've done for the sporting community. You have put a great plan together. You've worked with the town, and you funded it to date through the Trillium Grant. Obviously, they had to be satisfied with what it was you were proposing, and we know that Trillium Grants set goals and review and ensure before funding goes for the next year. And that's fantastic for the town because we have been able to enjoy all those benefits at no expense, and it really brings a focus into the value and the benefits. But I want to ask a few questions about your budget that you handed to council here, and on the front page, it comes to the bottom, Sport Aurora approved budget for 2016 with projections. So you have a 3-year plan, and for the 2016, we're looking at a deficit short of $56,000.
Right.
And so this is what the recommendation is through the report that we have before us, is that this is the first opportunity for our town to start putting in their the partnership that you've provided to date. And so it's fantastic that what you've asked us for is a very small amount to what's been invested through the province and through all your hard work and a very clear direction on your sport plan. There's a total of $145,000, and I see in the revenue, I'm trying to find out why it's only $56,000 when the total is $145,000. So can you let council know where that other $90,000?
Well, at the top, you see that we've got revenues of $89,700, right? Our expenditures are $145,000, the difference is essentially being $56,000, right? So we're again, this doesn't take into consideration any more sponsorship that we may try to get, and we're always looking for that aspect as well. So I'm not you're asking where that difference would happen?
Well,
because remember, in previous 4 years, we had $60,000 of Trillium funding.
Okay.
That would have been in there, right, which we don't have anymore.
Right, so now it would be, what was the total that the Trillium brought to the table for this?
$260,000, I believe.
So for
over,
the end of...
Over 4 years.
So if I were to add that 260 to the 56 over the 5 years, it would come to $3,000 and $10,000.
Exactly.
Plus all the volunteer and all the work that
Right.
you've done. And so we've now been asked at the very end just to supply that little shortfall. So,
That's basically what we're asking.
well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. I have Councillor Humphreys for a first time and a Councillor Maracas as well.
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Chair.
Humphreys.
Thank you very much, as always, for coming over. Excellent speaker, and represent the Sport Aurora really well. I just wanted to say I agree with a lot of the comments around the table, and for me, it's you're a proven, trusted partner that we've worked with for years and years, and the value that your entire board and committee and volunteers lends is really invaluable to our town. So for me, this is a really fantastic motion resolution that the staff have brought forward, and I'm looking forward to the first successful year and reporting out how we're going to continue the success. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Kimmer. Mr. Kimmer, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate everything you do, like everyone else has mentioned. You touched on the fact that Sport Aurora is open to any organization coming forward, and I'm just curious too, have you had any open dialogue and reached out to the two larger organizations that have not yet joined Sport Aurora, specifically in hockey and in soccer? And I'm just wondering if that dialogue has been opened, and is it continuously in negotiations right now?
It's interesting that you bring that up. I had a lunch with the executive director of Aurora Youth Soccer this afternoon, and I recently sent an email reaching out to Aurora Minor Hockey. So there's been ongoing dialogue. Jimmy Brennan and I have met about 4 or 5 times over the last year and a half. He is, I don't want to speak for him, but our conversations between the two of us have been very positive.
Very encouraging to hear that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Marakis. Councilor Gardner for a second time.
Thank you. When you mentioned the Trillium grant, in conjunction with that Trillium grant, I believe there was some part-time office space that was being provided at the town hall.
The town hall has provided us with the office space,
And that is
a
expected.
desk,
A desk. A part-time
which is
desk.
great. Yes, it's only part-time.
And that is expected to continue?
We hope so.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Any more questions from any members of council? Thank you for coming out, Mr. Kimmer. I have one question. So just to clarify, you've handed us budget document and your constitution. So the $56,000 that is being requested, which is in item 14, that is to cover the shortfall from the lack of Trillium funding
Exactly.
for this year?
Yep, for this year.
Thank you. And thank you very much for coming out, and
All
thanks
right.
to all the members of Sport Aurora for coming out as well.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. So we'll move then to, oh, sure, of course we have to vote. That's always the important thing. We've already moved and seconded it, I believe. So all those in favor of receipt and refer? Opposed? That carries. You'd think I'd know this by now, but. Okay, we'll move to the second delegation, which is Eden Cantikier. Did I get it? No. I massacred it, didn't I? Perhaps you can let us know how to correctly pronounce your name, and
Sure.
just another reminder that you have 5 minutes.
No problem. So good evening. My name is Eden Contier. I am the co-chair of Aurora Heights Public School, the parent council at Aurora Heights. The parents and the community of Aurora Heights Public School are very concerned for our children's safety. The traffic hazards out front of the school place our children at high risk of serious injury every day. There is no stop sign, no crosswalk, or crossing guard to ensure our children can cross the street safely. Careless driving is observed in abundance. For example, cars are speeding down the street and people are making illegal U-turns without looking or slowing down to consider who else is walking or driving around them. Aurora Heights Public School has been identified as having one of the worst traffic conditions in the region. Traffic studies have been completed. However, the issue has been brought to the town council and other town officials. Studies have been completed. However, the situation remains unresolved, and that's what brings me here today. The threat to our children's safety remains ever present. There was a fatal accident in front of the school quite some time ago, which forced the pickup and drop-off process into the back parking lot. Subsequently, Wells Street Public School closed. That closure forced a significant population growth into the area of the school, and therefore the process could no longer be executed safely in the back lot, pushing it forward back onto the streetscape. Pickup and drop off in front of the school remains there without any safety measures in place. The school has done their best by providing staff to support the pickup and drop-off activity. However, this doesn't change the safety of the traffic conditions or put any safety measures in place to support our children crossing that road for a pickup and drop-off, or kids who are walking to school with their families. There needs to be appropriate safety measures to control traffic in the school zone, and we wish to obtain the appropriate approvals for a stop sign to be installed at Tecumseh and Kitimat, and a crossing guard to be assigned. At our school currently, 1/3 of the school population is kindergartners. So you're talking about 133 children under the age of 6 that attend our school every day. And if you look at any statistics related to injury, children are disproportionately represented in the injury statistics, and child pedestrian injuries are substantially more dramatic, including things like brain and spinal injuries because of where the impact actually hits the children. Their size and the speed of the car creates a significant and disproportionate impact on those children and the injuries that they're sustained. Never mind injuries, but death. So in Markham, currently, there was a decision to put in stop signs at all sorts of school crossings, and I can't laundry list them for you, nor do I have time. However, it took 4 years, and that was subsequent to the death of a 4-year-old crossing the street with their parent. not unassisted, not running across the street, with their parent, hit by a car due to reckless driving. However, we can't control the reckless drivers, but we can put safety measures in place to support our children who have to do that every day. They cross the street every day to get to school. That's not an option. That's not things about playing. They're going to school. And there should be the necessary action be taken in order to make sure that that's the case. We teach our children to cross the street. We teach them to look. Every report and any research study suggests that children under the age of 10 do not have the developmental capacity yet they can judge, cross, look, no cars. They cannot judge the speed and the time at which they need to cross the street. They do not have that developmental capacity under the age of 10 in order to safely determine how much time they need and the distance to which the car needs to be in order for them to get across the road. So we're asking for the council to vote in favor of making these safety measures possible for our school and for our school community. That statistic of the number of those children, those kids are going to age, but we still see those numbers increasingly in that area for the school community. So those under 10 statistics of the children that are at our school are going to continue to be the significant proportion of the school.
Ms. Contier, you have about 40 seconds left.
That's okay. So I am actually simply going to close by saying that that's what our request is in terms of the installation of the stop sign and a crossing guard being assigned, and to make the appropriate motions and approvals necessary to have that happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And it's Contier?
Contier, yeah?
Contier, okay, perfect. I got it now. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming out, and may I have a motion to receive and refer? Moved by Councillor Maracas, seconded by Councillor Gartner. Do we have any comments or questions for Ms. Contier? Councillor Peary? Councillor Abel? Councillor Peary?
I'll be brief. I was in favor of moving it forward. Last time it was before us. I continue to be in favor of moving it forward, and I hope as a whole council is tonight as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Peary.
Appreciate your support.
Councillor Abel?
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming forward and bringing this concern and highlighting it. You know, we all want our children to be safe, and we do encourage walking to school, and I see that you have a travel plan policy that's endorsed. I think Sport Aurora even talked to it. When they walk across, and I'm sort of familiar with the area, and I appreciate traffic moving, it's a shortcut, and we have real concerns everywhere, but we should have big concerns, especially around our school areas. But we had a map last time, but perhaps you can help me. When you walk across from the school to Kidmount?
Yep.
Is there a sidewalk there?
Not on the west side of the street. There is only a sidewalk on the east side of Tecumseh.
So that's in front of the school?
Correct.
And so the population that's coming from that crescent down is walking on the road?
Correct.
Well, we would also want to put a sidewalk there, I would think.
It would make a number of people very happy to see that also be a measure that's put in place.
I think I'll bring that up when that comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abel. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming this evening. Absolutely, we have to do something about that area. You asked for a crossing guard. Have you looked into that as well? I mean, I don't think it's our council that looks after that, but oh, it is? Oh, okay. We'll look after that. If it comes to that. But no, thank you for it. When were you here last? I know that in February or January, but before then?
So it was not myself that came
Okay.
on behalf of the council. I'm not sure who our last representative was that came to speak
I just
to
don't
the issue.
remember this topic. Normally I would, my apologies for that though. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. I have Councillor Thompson next.
Thank you as well for coming out this evening. And I did hear that at the end of your delegation where you were requesting not just the three-way stop sign, but the crossing guard as well.
Correct.
There's no mention in our report of the crossing guard. So perhaps you can just take a minute just to explain why you feel that the crossing guard is necessary as in addition to the three-way stop sign.
I think the additional piece for us is about the additional measures that are needed. So we are aware that people will not necessarily stop for stop signs, as people don't necessarily adhere to all kinds of traffic and safety measures that are put in place. However, the the positioning of a crossing guard adds that extra additional safety measure where people are more inclined to stop as somebody standing dead in the middle of the road holding a stop sign to allow the safe crossing of our children. So we believe that both measures are required in order to protect the kids and enable them to cross safely.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson. Any further questions? Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Ken.
It's okay.
I should have just said thank you.
Contier or Smith,
Contier.
you can do Smith. Thanks, Steve.
It was mentioned before, and you know, we've had a couple of issues like this come up in the last year and a half or so, and I know from dropping off my own kids, a lot of the people that want to honk are my friends' parents who are dropping off their own kids, and I kind of shake my head, and I suspect that a lot of the people who are speeding and not practicing safe driving are parents themselves who are dropping off the kids. Have there been any discussion in council as to how to bring more awareness or attention or education to kind of assist in decreasing that type of behavior by parents that drop off kids?
So yes, in terms of some of the changes were actually made were done to move from the back lot, and was also about educating people on the kiss and ride process. So the idea of being able to pull up safely, drop your children, move along, and people were asked to, with an informed piece at the beginning of the school year, to sign up that they're going to be part of this kiss and ride process and follow the appropriate procedures to support that. The broader community that's crossing through, or families that are not dropping off their children. The other issue is that people are parking all around the streets and then trying to make the U-turn in order to park to cross safely. And so there's been a number of efforts to start that conversation and to pursue the conversation with people, but there's no, other than us supporting that dialogue, there's no actual measures in place, and which is why we're asking for this now, is that's not enough. Our dialogue and our conversation, people signing up to say that they'll safely pursue the kiss and ride procedure, doesn't seem to be changing the traffic conditions that are in front of the school on a daily basis.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Kim. Any further questions? Oh, we have Councillor Humphreys, sorry, for a second time.
Thank you. My apologies. I remember now. So thank you very much. And I know why we wanted this to go back to staff for more investigation. There was some comments that were provided to us of concerns of the stop sign, but glad you're back, and hopefully we'll move forward. And
Persistent, if nothing else.
Good, you have to be. It's important to our children. We have to be for sure. Thank you very much for that. And there is one thing, and I don't know if you're aware of it. We do have these signs that we have promoted to put on lawns, maybe around the school area, to slow down. Our kids are, I don't know if they're still available, but they're wonderful. And I think at the front of the schools or on the other side, just until we get to where we need to go with these stop signs, to put them out there. I don't know if they're there or not, if you've ever seen them before.
I don't believe there are any up currently in the neighborhood, that there is an interest in pursuing any avenues that will support our children's safety. However, it wouldn't necessarily replace our request, and hopefully not be something that we would sort of rely on an ongoing basis.
No, not at all. Just to get those speeding cars to, oh, there are kids around here, you know. Thank you.
Fair enough. It would be our pleasure.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. And Councillor Humphreys makes mention they're like lawn signs, almost like election signs, and I think they're just at the front desk. I think you can just ask for some, and the staff will give you them. So, and again, just for an added bonus to help people be aware of the need to slow down. Absolutely, everything possible. Absolutely. So, I think actually Mr. Elliott had just grabbed some, so perhaps you can grab one before you guys leave.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Ms. Contier, for coming out. So I'll just need a vote to receive and refer. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And again, thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you for your time.
So, committee, will move now to presentations by the advisory committee chairs. Do you just have your hand up, Councillor Peary?
I did. I just wanted to move items 5 and 14 forward. But I'll wait. And kill
Okay.
my time.
Are there any presentations by the advisory committee chairs? I don't see any, so we'll move forward then to consideration of the items requiring separate discussion, and Councillor Peary, go ahead.
I'd like to move items number 5 and 14 forward in that order.
Seconder for that, Councillor Marakis. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So then we'll move to item 5 to begin. And that was pulled by Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to amend, I'll move it and then make an amendment.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Marakis. Councillor Abel?
I would like to amend that we prioritize the sidewalk on the opposite street, Kidmint. It makes no sense to me to have safety guards and then put the children onto the road. And we have a master plan for sidewalks, and I'm certain that we prioritize school areas, so I would like to add that. So I would amend that.
Point of order, that doesn't fall within the scope of the report at all. Maybe that's a new business item, but maybe we should debate the actual report before we start putting amendments on the table.
Before I will allow it, I'll talk to the clerk. Mr. Clerk, is that something that is admissible?
May I ask? Sure. Mr. Clerk, are we allowed to make amendments?
Mr. Clerk, would you comment?
Thank you. Council, of course, members of the committee are, of course, permitted to make amendments provided that they are germane to the main motion, so which generally means closely related to the main motion. I've been asked, would adding a sidewalk to it be germane? It seems to be, it would be my recommendation to committee that that would be not closely related. It would be a separate issue, but it does fall to committee to make that decision.
So in relation to Councillor Peary's point of order, Councillor Abel, I'll just ask that you move that in new business.
Mr. I asked the delegate.
I'd like to challenge the chair's interpretation on that, because the report clearly states the goal of the school travel planning policy is to create safe routes for students, and a sidewalk is a safe route for students.
And I'm not,
so, you know, I'd like council to decide whether or not that amendment is in order or not.
So we have a challenging of the ruling of the chair from Councillor Thompson. No, there's no comment on it. So we have to put that to a vote. All those in favor of sustaining the ruling of the chair. All those in favor of sustaining the ruling of the chair, vote yes, and you can vote now. So how many, hands high, please.
That's voting yes.
To uphold my ruling.
I can count one,
Those
two.
opposed? That is defeated. So the floor is Mr. Abel's.
Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Thompson. Councillor Abel, to the amendment.
Thank you. To the amendment, I did ask the delegate if it did concern and whether it would assist in safety, and so that's why I brought it up, and I thought it was germane to the report, so I appreciate the committee supporting that. And yeah, and again, I think the priority is around schools, at least, that we should have sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Anyone, speakers to the amendment? We have Councillor Thompson.
To the amendment, through you to Mr. Simonovskis. Mr. Simonovskis, you know, are you familiar with the stretch that we're talking about with regards to the sidewalk? And I know that you don't have much prior, you know, advancement of the question and stuff, but are you aware of where it might sit on the timeline for our sidewalk policy at all?
Mr. Simonovskis?
Certainly through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm aware of the section of road that could use a sidewalk, and we also had that conversation with the resident who brought forward a delegation at the previous report that was on this matter, and we can definitely program it for 2017, make some adjustments in our multi-year plan. I mean, the goal of that multi-year sidewalk gap plan was to prioritize areas and make adjustments where, you know, where demands change. So that's not a problem at all. We can bring that as part of the 2017 capital program.
Thank you very much.
Thompson? So I have Councillor Peary, Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Abel. Councillor Peary.
So I'll be brief. I don't mind. It just, in my opinion, was never the right time to have this discussion. There are budget implications. If its memory serves, the residents in the neighborhood were asked whether or not they wanted sidewalks, and the residents in the neighborhood said no. I'm all in favor of having sidewalks in this location, but this isn't the time to be discussing this matter, in my opinion. if this is the direction we're going, that's fine. As I stated when we looked at this on I believe, February 2nd, this was always within our policies and our procedures that a stop sign here needed to be put in. We had one delegate who showed up who made us revisit all of our policies and all our procedures, but ultimately this was the right thing to do from the beginning. I'm happy we're finally moving in the right direction, in my opinion. So I'm just happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Peary. I have Councillor Humphreys next. Councillor Humphreys?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree with Councillor Perry, we policies and procedures in that case, and we did send it back, but sometimes, you know, we want to just get some things done, and waiting to talk about it at the right time just sometimes drives me insane. But anyway, in terms of this sidewalk being here, we had this exact scenario, I believe it was on Glass Drive with the school there, and it was a huge problem, and it was on the list like 7 years after the fact that we moved it forward. And it was something like this that got us to pay attention to do it. So I think it's perfect timing to move forward with the stop signs and also get it on the capital budget list for the next session.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. I have Councillor Maracas for the first time, and then Councillor Abel and Councillor Thompson for the second. Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking to the amendment, you know, I had no issues with the amendment, just due to the fact that I think we're just asking just for the, you know, to prioritize it within the budget. We're not looking to implement it or say, let's do it, and when we get to the budget, we'll deal with it. So, you know, I felt it was in order, and I'm all for asking staff to bring it forward and make it a high priority. So I think it's, I'm all in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maracas. Councillor Gardner, did you have your hand up for a first time? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Simonovskis. Mr. Simonovskis, it goes into the 2017 budget. Really doesn't get built till 2018, 2019? It's a question.
Mr. Simonovskis?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that section is fairly flat and fairly easy to design, so that would be an in-house design, and if we get approval, because we're advancing the capital approvals now, we'll have approval probably in November, December, and could easily do the design and have that prepared for tendering in 2017. So it would be installed in the summer, so it'll be ready for September of 17.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have Mayor Daw for a first time, and I will move to Councillor Abel and Councillor Thompson. Mayor Daw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think it's fair to say we just want to get stuff done, because this came before council, and as was mentioned, it was turned down based on one delegate. I thought we should go forward with it, so there's an impression that somehow we weren't willing to get it done, which I don't believe is correct. And with respect to the sidewalk, I have no problem with the sidewalk. I have no problem with prioritizing it. My issue voting in favor of the chair was that this is not the time to be discussing it. It could have been brought up under new business. So it's not to say that we're not in favor of it. I just don't want that impression out there.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I'm sure that's noted by the audience. I now move to Councillor Abel for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just 2 quick points. One, that the cars are parked there and picking up their kids, and they jockey around and move around, and if you're putting the children on the road, they're much safer on the sidewalk, and that's really all I wanted to do, was to affect that. And Councillor Kim had brought that out. I know myself, when I drop kids off, the biggest offenders are the other parents dropping their kids off. It's very timely, and we're not always thinking of their safety at times. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Councillor Thompson?
Just 2 things. One was touched upon with regards to the motion, really just to prioritize it. It's already on the list. We've decided that we're just going to reshuffle the list and move this up in the schedule. And so again, it'll come before us at budget time for the numbers. But, you know, depending on your personal view of whether or not this qualifies under new business or not, let's also keep in mind that we have residents here on the issue, and that it's not, you know, it's not fair to them to make them wait the whole night with all the items to deal with it under new business, when really it is pertinent to this issue and it's of interest to them. So I'm glad the rest of council decided to deal with it now.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any further comments or questions by committee on the amendment? This is just the amendment, folks. So, I mean, my ruling was based on the advice of the clerk. Council or committee made its decision. I think we're all in favor of children's safety and sidewalks and the efficient running of the town. So I think everyone gets that. So voting on the amendment, all those in favor? All those opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Back to the main motion as amended. Councillor Abel?
think we've covered most of what I wanted to get
Okay,
brought up. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. I have Councillor Thompson next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the questions put forward by the delegate was with respect to a crossing guard. So perhaps, I'm not sure if it falls under Mr. Simonovskis or Ms. Van Leeuwen's department with regards to what's required for putting a crossing guard here, financial implications. Perhaps they could fill in the blanks for us.
Thank you. Who's best? Mr. Simonovskis, would you like to answer that, please?
Yes, certainly through Mr. Chair. So the crossing guard program is under IAS, and what we do is we contract crossing guards out to a third-party service. I can investigate. I don't know, because this year is virtually over, I don't know if we would be able to bring a crossing guard in for this year. And there's also a budget implication. So if council would like, I could bring a report back on what the cost would be for initiating a crossing guard for September of 2016. And then we can make those adjustments in the budget and carry that forward for 2017 if that's council's direction.
Councillor Thompson?
Happy to move forward an amendment that staff bring forward a report with regards to the crossing guard.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Maracus. To the amendment, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Simonovskis, can this come back to us for our council meeting next week?
Mr. Simonovskis?
Through Mr. Chair, I believe we can do that. It's really just a budget exercise, so we can do it in the form of a brief memo if that's appropriate and bring that pertinent information on that decision.
Thank you.
Councillor Gardner?
Further, also perhaps looking into the availability of a crossing guard for the last 2 months of the school year. Or 3 months of the school year, whether it's even possible to do it. Thank you.
If I may respond to that, what we would recommend is that the signs be installed first so that there's an actual controlled intersection before a crossing guard is placed on that location. I would suggest, just from a sequencing perspective, September is probably a more appropriate timeline.
Thank you, Mr. Simonovskis.
Thank you.
Gardner?
Thank you.
For the clerk and for everyone's edification, could you just repeat again what the amendment is? You have it? You've got it? Okay. Perhaps just for mine then?
Simply for staff to bring forward a report with respect to having a crossing guard for this intersection.
Okay, perfect. Any further speakers to that amendment? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Back to the main motion as amended again. I have Councillor Kim, then Councillor Gardner. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I'm totally in favor of the stop signs, especially in light of the fact that we already addressed that there was no sidewalks, and this whole program of school travel planning and safe walkability is kind of an oxymoron when you don't have sidewalks anywhere to travel to school to. But I think just one of the one resident or delegate who did come forward, just to his defense, I don't think he has a total issue with a stop sign necessarily, but I think the main issue is that I think having local residents involved in the communication and the participation of what happens at that intersection is critical to the success, because a lot of times residents and neighbors are the eyes and ears, and oftentimes they contribute to a safe environment. And so I think the main issue with that person was that the public consultation process was missing. And I know in the report it states that by bringing this to a public consultation, maybe other priorities that were not meant for this type of situation might be introduced. But I think I would tend to agree that when you have something like this, it would be nice to have local residents who are adjacent to the school be involved in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gardner, to the motion as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. Through you to Mr. Simonovskis, and maybe I've missed this in the first report, but I don't see anything about this being a school safety zone.
Mr. Simonovskis?
Through Mr. Chair, I believe there is a school safety zone there because every school we have has them in place. I'm fairly certain. You know what? Let me verify that with staff and communicate back through council just to confirm.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, and the reason I mention that is with the school safety zone, there come additional signage. I think sometimes there's some police presence. Sometimes they put up the speed monitors. So if there isn't a school safety zone in place, could we please know the process that we would have to go through to instate that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any more speakers to the motion as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Thank you very much for coming out. So we'll move to item 14, I believe was the other item that was moved forward. That was pulled by Councillor Abel.
Thank you. I'll move as is.
Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Abel?
I thought, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thought the delegate and the members here have done just an outstanding job bringing this forward. And we did ask several questions, just to be clear on what has been accomplished and where we're going. We have a 3-year plan before us. It's comprehensive, and I'm in full support of the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. You know, I'm glad to see us moving forward. I think, you know, when we began this process with regards to the sports plan, we saw it as a strategic document to help guide our way with regards to sports delivery in Aurora. And certainly I'm supportive with us doing something so that we continue it on. I mean, we identified 2015 as the year of sport, and we were certainly hopeful that we would have kick-started off a little bit earlier, but we're here now, and I'm glad to see that. My only question is through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, one of the suggestions was that, you know, we clearly identify, you know, the goals and objectives and the tasks before them so that, you know, we have some clear outcomes and measurables when they come back or when we look back upon review. Is that sort of your intention to sort of draw up some sort of, I guess, proposal or agreement with them to clearly define those? Or what was your thoughts with regards to the next steps after, if council were to approve the motion as it stands?
Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Chair, when they, thanks very much. When they first came to my office and made the proposal, that was part of the discussion. It is our full intent to enter into an agreement. We need to make sure we measure the success, and a report will be coming back to council with regards to the success of the engagement of this partnership.
That's great. I think we're all well aware of the accomplishments of Sport Aurora up to this point, and I look forward with their assistance of moving forward with the implementation of our sports plan, and I'm fully in support.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, and it's an excellent plan. I have two concerns. One is Goal 1, Sports Leadership, on page 11 of the report. And it's speaking about the Parks and Recreation Committee and changing that into, well, it talks about changing the name into Parks, Recreation, and Sport Coordinating Committee, and expanding the committee's mandate to include different matters that are not included in the mandate at the moment. So looking at the Parks and Rec Committee at the moment, the people who have volunteered for that committee have volunteered under certain parameters. And so now if we're going to change that into expand the committee's mandate, I don't know how we would go about that, but I think there certainly has to be a discussion with the members of the committee and whether they want to take that on or perhaps they don't, and we need to re-advertise for that. And I think that's very important. Also, and it has been mentioned, this is going back to page 2, it's T2 or T3, I can't tell. Reconstituting Sport Aurora into a sport council with an expanded mandate and representation from the entire sports community. And that is a very, very big issue. I know that Sport Aurora is well aware of that and is working on that. But a sport council, if we are, as a council, endorsing a sport council, that sport council must have the buy-in from hockey and soccer, because they have a huge membership, and they would need to be represented. So that is certainly something that needs to have further work by Sport Aurora, by this council, by Mr. Downey. I'm not sure who, but it's a very important issue to me.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. I have you, Councillor Thompson, but I'll move to Councillor Kim first. Okay, as Chair of Parks and Rec, I'll let you elaborate on what Councillor Gartner did.
If I may, just with respect to the Parks and Rec Committee and changing some of the terms of reference, Mr. Downey and I have already spoken about some of the recommendations within the implementation of the sports plan. Parks and Rec is holding a special meeting at the end of this month on the 31st, specifically to some of the recommendations within the implementation of the sports plan and what Parks and Rec Committee can do. That one will certainly be on the list for discussion at the committee level, and of course that would then come back to council. But certainly we see Parks and Rec being involved and specific to that one as well.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Most of the questions I had were answered earlier, and I had an opportunity to communicate with the executive team via email, so they filled in a lot of the blanks that I had. And the more I read and learn about what Sport Aurora does, the more I'm kind of in awe of the stuff that you guys do, and I kind of liken you guys to kind of like power brakes. The council, we just press down on the brakes, and you guys do all the heavy lifting, and thank you for that. I had the same concerns as Councillor Marakis in the question period, as well as Councillor Gardner in terms of the Sport Council, and I inquired about that, and if I've only heard one side, but from what I can tell, by being part of Sport Aurora or a Sport Council, it doesn't seem like any organization or business is put under any limitations or restrictions in any way in running his or her organization. And so I'm at a loss as to why others will not, or to this point, have not partnered in this organization. And I don't believe that Sport Aurora should be held hostage just because a couple of other large organizations have chosen not to be a part of it. And I think if we have a sport plan, it should be a unified sport plan, taking into consideration all sports. But if these organizations refuse to be a part of it, then I think it's part of our obligations to maybe encourage them to be a part of it, because we're not going to be planning on something and setting aside separate time and customizing every strategy for every organization. And it would make sense for us to have a unified body. And so, I hope that we at council can also send a message to the other organizations that, let's, whatever reasons are challenging, let's get over that and have a unified plan and a council going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Mayor Daw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll essentially echo what Councillor Kim said. I think that Sport Aurora has stepped up extremely well to provide us with the services they need, and I would suggest that they're doing this as a benefit to the town because they believe it's the right thing to do. And for that reason alone, I'm very inclined to support them. I'm also inclined to support Mr. Downey's recommendation of 1 year. We've had, as most of the councillors here will know, some challenges with service agreements with external bodies, and I think that 1 year will give us a sense of how this is going. We may decide to go in a different direction. That's why I asked Mr. Kimmerer, those questions during his delegation, because they also need to be aware that this could indeed just be a 1 year engagement for them, and then they have other obligations that they're going to have to take care of. Sport Aurora has been very forthright in terms of engaging everybody in the sporting community in this town. It's obviously not the registration fee, which is only $25. So I think there's other things at play, and quite frankly, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. If the other parties wish to join, I believe Sport Aurora will welcome them with open arms. If they don't, to echo Councillor Kim's comments, I don't think we should be penalizing Sport Aurora for something that somebody else does not want to do. So I certainly support the plan, and I look forward to seeing what benefits the town can reap from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Any comments? Councillor Maracus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just be brief and quick. I think what Sport Aurora offers is very great for the town, and I'm in full support of moving forward with this. And I agree with the mayor. I think the 1 year, in essence, lease, so to say, is a good opportunity to move forward and not go beyond that, to allow us to see how it works and what evolves from it, and how we can move forward. And if it works for both parties and everyone, and it's great, we can move forward. And if it doesn't, maybe we go into a different direction. But I think it's incumbent on us to give Sport Aurora, for all that they do, that opportunity to see what they can do with the sport plan and the implementation of that. And so I'm in support of this for the 1 year.
Thank you, Councillor Maracus. I have Councillor Thompson for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Johnny, just to clarify, because I think it's good to make sure that everybody's expectation is the same. When we say 1 year, are we going to have a rolling 12-month period? So we're going to go from April to March of 2017, or is it really just for the remainder of 2016, which is 9 months? I think it's important to clarify that so that we're all clear on what to expect here.
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's my intent that we enter into a 1-year agreement. So it'll be a calendar year, 1 full year. We will be reporting back on what we have been able to accomplish prior to the budget, and during budget deliberations, we will be making recommendations as to whether or not we should be moving forward with an additional year, or whether or not we should be going in a different direction, but we haven't made those determinations to this point. But I see this agreement expiring a year from this date.
Thank you, Mr. Downey, and thank you, Councillor Thompson. Are there any other speakers to this item? I have a few questions. Mr. Downey, the implementation of the year 1 goals for the sport plan is what we're contracting the services for. That's correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, for the majority of them, some of them stay town responsibility. They wouldn't be within the mandate of the consultant.
And who will be managing them? Someone on your staff obviously will be taking care of the town responsibilities?
That would be more than likely me.
That would be you, okay.
Yes.
Fabulous. That's it for now. Thanks, Mr. Downey. So if there's no further comments on this item, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. Thanks to everyone from Sport Aurora for coming out this evening. You have to stay. So that concludes item 14. We'll move then to item 4, which was pulled by Mayor Daw.
I'll move as is, Mr. Chair.
Is there a seconder for this? Seconded by Councillor Abel. Mayor Daw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I've had some discussions with staff about this particular project, and I want to bring to the notice of council that GO will be expanding with their double track, and when is still up for debate. But GO will be expanding. There could be some impact on this road and on the project as we see it. But after discussions with Mr. Simonovskis and with Ms. Mahale, it would appear that it still makes a lot of sense to go ahead with this project, especially with the sidewalk alignment. With increased traffic, I think that makes sense. Just to be aware in the future, 5-6 years down the road, that GO will be coming in, no doubt making some changes as they go along. But just to have that in the back of your mind. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that update, Mr. Mayor. Speakers, we have Councillor Thompson, Councillor Maracus, Councillor Abel. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. And that was similar to when I first saw the map plan. I've certainly heard of their interest in a number of different things around there, given, obviously the demands for parking and so forth around it. And so through you to Mr. Simonovskis, is there any way to sort of, when working with them, somehow mitigate any damages that may be occurring to the roads if they're building and constructing as a result of acquiring buildings around there? Because, you know, the concern, of course, as stated, is that we spend all this money on a brand-new road, and 2-3 years later, dump trucks are rolling back and forth over it, that there might be some damage. So what can we do to ensure that any of that gets mitigated?
Mr. Simnovskis?
Certainly through Mr. Chair, if there's any access required to our roads or any work being done adjacent to our roads, we will have them enter into an agreement with us with regards to that access. GO has been, you know, they've been a reasonable partner with us with coordination and with other issues and opportunities that have happened around this site. So I don't see there being any challenges, and I would hope that that relationship continues as they advance and, you know, do more construction on these other properties. So we definitely will keep those communication lines open and make sure that we have their cooperation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Maracus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Simnovskis. Mr. Simnovskis, we had conversations last year about the north side of industrial, and I believe something was supposed to come back as far as kind of like of how it would possibly, how it could look. And I'm just wondering, when would we be getting that? And was there any thought of, I know we've had discussions in the past of kind of getting them both out there for tender possibly to kind of get a discount if someone's doing the whole thing instead of one. And if I can just throw in a second question there, is the reason why it's not here, is it possible because of the application that's before us on the corner of Industrial and Wellington, and that might, when that gets done, maybe we can look at that side?
Mr. Simnovskis?
Through Mr. Chair, there's a few questions there.
Do your best.
I think the short answer is we do want to look at, we need to look at that north leg as well, because, you know, as you've brought forward in your motion, there are some opportunities that we need to take advantage of. And I think the best time to do that is as part of this application coming in on the northeast corner, so we can coordinate any land acquisitions if needed, and how that might look as far as that particular corner, as well as extending it north to get it to, I believe we would be targeting somewhere just south of Scanlon to make that transition. So
that's perfect.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Councillor Maracus. I have Councillor Abel next. Councillor Abel?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Right along the lines of Councillor Maracus, for me, I think we can identify it as one of the heaviest volumes of traffic in our town presently with the GO traffic. And now we are hearing from our mayor that that's even going to be bigger with the expansion of the GO service. And I'm looking, are we just dealing with the south side of this? It should be all right. Everyone should have a right turn lane and a left turn lane if we're going to be doing an intersection. And this is only dealing with one portion of that. And so I want to know why we're only doing that. For me, why wouldn't we do the whole thing?
Mr. Simnovskis? Oh, sorry, Councillor Abel, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
Through Mr. Chair, if just to be clear, is the question why aren't we doing both the north leg and south leg of industrial? Is that the question?
Well, not the leg, but just the intersection.
Okay, so if I may, the biggest traffic issue is when GO lets out in the south parking lot and spills onto industrial. And I'm not sure what the volume is, but a very large volume of that traffic wants to turn right. So this focus is on a very large right turn lane to allow traffic that wants to go straight or left to have that additional access. Because right now what ends up happening is all the right turn traffic is holding up the through traffic, so you have a longer line up. So that's where the pinch point is. However, we do recognize that there's also some demand southbound, not as acute, because those are the folks coming into the station in the mornings, and they're not coming in, you know, within a very tight time window. So there's a little less of a demand. They're also expensive projects, so we're trying to phase them out so that we're not spending, you know, $3 or $4 million in one location. So there are a few reasons why we've split it up. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but we're just trying to look at where the demands are and build that infrastructure to meet those demands as the demands grow.
Well, you know, a lot of us are in that area. St. Max, Colby has, as soon as the GO trains leave in the morning, then the students are being dropped off. So, you know, after 9 o'clock, of course, the intersection is really easy to navigate. The point is that when you are coming southbound, if you want to make a right turn, if there was a right turn lane, you could be on your way and around the corner, just like you've identified the pinch point. And I thought if we were working on an intersection, you could provide a right lane at that point, and then do your expansion and everything as it goes down. But if you're laying down the infrastructure, moving lamps, it just beguiles me, like, why wouldn't we be considering all four at the same time? Why we wouldn't be doing it? So you have basically said you'll address that with Councillor Maracas. I'm just being a little more specific. And the scope is, I know, going past Centre and maybe right up to the Scanlon Yard, and I understand all that, and there'll be so there's a right turn lane if you're going west and you want to go north. There's a right turn lane on Wellington if you want to go south, and we're going to provide a right turn lane going north, and so there's just one other lane I'm suggesting that we put in. And I thought it's not that big in the scope of doing things, and so I bring it to your attention.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Any further comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Moving on to item 6. Councillor Abel, you pulled this one.
Yes, I'll move as it is.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Mayor Daw. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm in the club as Councillor Gartner and Councillor Maracas, Councillor Thompson. I think this side is always in there. We may not.
I play squash there too, so.
Do you? I'm sorry. I'm not a Scotch player. I don't go down by the pool. They're doing roof work now on that, through you, Mr. Chair. I saw bins there just starting this week. Is that related to this? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Simnoskas?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, there's work being done on the roof that was just constructed. There's some challenges with the work that was done there, and the contractor has to make good those leaks. I know we had some leaks in the last couple of weeks, and there's been some other issues going on with some of the roof work that was done last year, so that's what that is. It's warranty work.
Thank you. And so this is the lower roof section. I'm just trying to visualize where that is in the complex, if you don't mind, through you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. It's the section. It's above the section where you're entering the arena from the main entrance. So if you come into the main entrance, you walk left, and then there's the main doors going towards the arena. It's in that area. It's referred to as a lower section because it's not the roof of the actual arena or the pool area. It's in the lobby area. And the reason why it wasn't done as part of the main contract is that there was no major work being done in that contract area, so that the original roof was left untouched.
Okay, so now it has to be
replaced.
Okay. All right. So there's going to be lots of activity, and we're going to address all the leaks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Any other speakers to this item? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We'll move then to item 8, which was pulled by Councillor Thompson.
I'll move it as is.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Maracas. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much. I just had a quick question. I apologize for not asking this sooner, but through you to Mr. Simanoskis. Mr. Simanoskis, on page 3 of the report, underneath table 2, you say that the cost savings is a result of tendering early, but I mean, we have a significant savings. We budgeted for $655,000. You know, the tender comes in at $365,000 roughly, and so I mean, it's a 65% of what we had budgeted for. The savings is 200 some. And while I don't doubt we got some savings going out early, I mean, that's implying that their profit is quite high and they can give that up to go early. Surely there must be more to that cost savings than just tendering early, because that's quite the savings.
Mr. Simanoskis?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and we saw the same thing with the Industrial Parkway project, where last year we tendered it late and the project was over $1.2 million over budget, and now it's the savings is about $600,000 if we had allowed that additional funding. The way we estimate these projects is we use unit rates for asphalt, for sub-base, for curbs and whatnot, and those unit rates are based on the last year or two of tendering results, and those numbers are used for all the projects. When contractors bid the projects, they will, make their own estimates based on their desire for the project, their estimate of their costs, and you can see even within the table on page, or at the table 1, where the bidders list is, the range goes from $364,000 to $600,000. So this is typical, and the more bids we have, you'll see a larger range because you've got more players in the game, and those that are more interested in securing the contract are going to be a little more competitive, and those that may not need the contract or see other risks that others may not see are going to be bidding it at a higher price. It's just the process. Our estimating process, we do apply consistent estimating unit rates to our projects as we put the numbers together for the budget. But again, those unit rates vary based on who's bidding and when they're bidding.
I appreciate that. I just thought there was more to it. My assumption is that nobody's going to bid on a job and lose money. They're doing it with the expectation they're going to make something. Maybe they're willing to make less money or just break even, but that's my assumption, and maybe I'm wrong in that assumption. But that seems to imply that at $364,000 they're still breaking even or making a little bit of money and they're happy. And so that was the $200,000 reduction. So I was hoping it was more than that because that's quite the margin. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any comments further on this item? Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, at this point, I would just like to emphasize and the importance of preparing budgets in a timely fashion. And the Finance Committee and Council last year moved very hard with staff to get a budget done in a timely fashion. And you can see right away the dividends going forward on this. So I thought I'd make that point. I appreciate what everyone's done.
It's a great point. Thank you, Councillor Abel. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Move then to item 11, which was pulled by Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Move as is.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Humphreys? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. I'm going to be very glad to see this completed and bringing people into the cultural precinct area. I just have one concern. It's on page 3 of the report. It's been a continuing concern of mine. We have only 3 visitor parking spaces for all these condominium units, and I think what's going to happen is when there are going to be visitors to these units, they're going to park at Town Park, and we already have issues there. So through you to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, is there any way at all we can get more than 3 visitor parking spots?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, not at this point. When we dealt with the site plan, I guess back in 2012, we reviewed it to include sufficient parking spaces. And yes, there are only 3 visitor spaces, but there are a total of 44 parking spaces, plus the 3, we're up to 47, with 34 units. Now, the unit count did reduce from the original 39 to 34. So based on our review and the traffic study that was submitted, we felt the parking on site was sufficient for the development. But at this point, yeah, they're just about complete the exterior work, the parking area, pavers are down, carport is up.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. So it's 44 parking spaces for 34 units and 3 visitor parking spaces. I believe this is going to be a concern for this council in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Through to Ms. Van Loon. Ms. Van Loon, I seem to remember a conversation when we were talking about capabilities, technology, about getting some of the tools for bylaw, and also talking about a permit system that down the road, people then, if they needed parking, they could use their smartphone, whatever, get some online permits. So, perhaps maybe a simple solution is just promoting that program in the area when that building is operational, so that visitors then can utilize that technology and get a permit to park. Would that be a future possibility?
Ms. Van Loon?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it definitely is. The program that we have approval for to proceed with the capital project for a parking management solution is on hold pending the report back to council on the overnight possible parking suspension and pilot program, because there is a significant cost in going forward, and if we suspend overnight parking, my thought is, should we go forward with a full parking solution? So that will be included in part of the report that staff will be coming back with in the near future.
But in terms of timelines, you certainly see council making a decision on that issue prior to occupancy with regards to this condominium, in all likelihood.
Through you, Mr. Chair, timing is probably around the same time. They're looking for occupancy sometime in the near future, I would say within the next 6 to 8 weeks. However, having said that, if need be, we could implement a manual parking permit system if required.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any further comments to this item? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Move to item 12, which was pulled by Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. Move the motion as is.
Seconded by Councillor Marakis. Councillor Gartner?
Thank you. This seems like a simple issue with swimming pool discharge, hot tub discharge, but it actually has significant effect on the streams and the water that this pool water, et cetera, is discharged into. So I'm very glad to see that there's going to be an educational campaign. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Simonovskis, on page 2. Actually, I'm sorry, on page 3. People who are, oops. Thank you. People who are newly applying for pool permits are going to get all of this information. Well, they're going to get a brochure, but actually there's quite a lot of information in here. And it seems to me, from what I can see, that also there's going to be an effort for people who already have pools to receive this information. And do we have most of the pools and the existing pools in town captured in City View?
Who's best placed to answer this one? Mr. Amuno?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, my staff's been working on this, and we do have a handle of all the existing pools in town. And as part of the education program, we will send out the same pamphlet to all the existing pool owners in town as well.
Thank you. And again, through you, Mr. Chair, to you, you know, we would be depending on people's goodwill, et cetera, to follow through on this. Is there any point at which we might actually put a bylaw in place? It would probably be pretty hard to enforce, but I think it's been done in other municipalities. So a comment on that, please. Mr.
Amuno?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The first phase was really simply the educational program, but that's something that we can consider moving forward with respect to a bylaw.
Thank you. Last question. There's several pages of information. I'm assuming the pamphlet is going to be quite compact, and the information that's on the website will probably not be this extensive, or will there be able, is there some way that we can really do as complete a job informing the public as possible?
Mr. Amuno?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it will be as detailed pamphlet as possible without being too lengthy. We haven't attached a copy of the pamphlet. What we've attached in the 3 attachments to the report are really just the existing guidelines that we've gleaned from other municipalities. But staff is currently putting together a pamphlet to distribute.
Thank you.
And it'll have all the relevant information.
And the question about the bylaw, could you see a bylaw being put in place at some point?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's something that my staff and staff from the building department are discussing, but we will, that'll be a next step. We'll definitely come back to council with direction on that in the future.
Thank you. I'd sincerely like to thank the Environmental Advisory Committee for tackling this, and to Peter Parasol, who has been concerned about this for a long time, for coming forward and speaking with the committee on this.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Marakis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. just echo those sentiments. Mr. Parasol came in before the committee, and it was great that he came and brought this forward. And I think the committee as a whole did a great job and are very excited to see this moving forward. For me, I like the fact that we're doing the first phase, but I think the committee and even myself, I'd like to see more of that second phase and the bylaw aspect of it come into effect. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ramuno, I know Councillor Gardner asked you, but I guess, is there a time frame for a possible draft bylaw to come before council? Are we going to be looking at getting a possible draft bylaw before the end of the pool season? So therefore, maybe we could possibly have something in place for when people are discharging their pools?
Is there a time frame, Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have a time at this point, but it's something that we'll definitely have a discussion with myself, Director of Building and IES, and report back to council as soon as we can on the feasibility of bringing forward a bylaw.
Councillor Marcus?
Thank you. So I guess, just a comment, I think I'd prefer, and I think, I don't want to speak for the committee itself, but my understanding from, speaking with most of the members from the committee is that we would prefer to see a bylaw, or at least a draft bylaw come into effect, or a bylaw come into effect before this pool season ends, so we can implement it, and therefore we can kind of have those strategies moving forward. So I'm hopeful our staff can do the necessary work and bring that forward for us to look at, and we can decide whether we want to implement it or not, because I feel that there's many municipalities that have put this forward, and I think it's important for us to do, and respect our environment and look after it for future generations. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. Councillor Abel?
Thank you, and I very much appreciate this being brought forward. You don't think about, and I'm sure people don't. I also realized when conservation came and talked about fertilizer, the fertilizer that people put on their lawn isn't as harmful or of concern. It's what goes on the driveway and on the road that is impacting. So the simple guideline, and I noticed it's the last page, 86 and 87, it shows a brochure from Brantford. It makes it very simple and it's easy to understand. And I think this is a great thing to circulate to all pool owners. And then it also allows us that if you do see someone draining something on a driveway or not on their lawn, then we know that that's not proper way of being environmentally friendly. So I know it's going to follow this format, but that's the way to do it. I was looking through the rest of the report, and there's about, I guess about 15 pages, and that's just too much reading for the average layman to understand. So I think if it's in that sort of an idea, it's actually preventative and proactive, and I really appreciate it being brought forward.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. I agree, clear and concise is probably the best way forward. Are there any further comments? I see none. Oh, Councillor Perry?
Just out of curiosity, through you to either Mr. Simonovskis, I think probably Elmar's the right guy. We talk about discharge to storm drains. What happens if there are some tracts in town that don't have any storm drains? They don't have sanitary sewer system nearby. How do we anticipate dealing with a bylaw for those individuals?
Mr. Simonovskis, do you have a comment for that, or is that better place?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can comment on I guess the issue with pool water, primarily the issue is chlorine. And, I'm not sure which bylaws Mr. Ramoon has been looking at. There are a number of samples of bylaws in various municipalities, various restrictions, various solutions or opportunities for installing, say, private service connections for homes. But I think the core issue is protection of the natural environment, and the primary culprit is chlorine. So if there are, and I'm happy to work with the staff, we've talked on this already internally, and there may be provisions around special dechlorination equipment that may be made available, or some other practices to sort of disperse a discharge, so you're dealing with that chlorine issue before it hits any natural water courses. So there are opportunities for dealing with it. And I think part of the work Mr. Maroon is speaking to, is looking at what the opportunities are and how that bylaw could be fashioned.
Councillor Perry, does that answer your question?
I look forward to seeing more information on the matter, and I would hope that everybody in town is dealt with, fair and equally.
Thank you very much. Any further comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Move then to item 13, which was pulled by Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move as is.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Peary?
Thank you. And I'm glad to see that we're not getting too late in the meeting. This pending list comes on our agenda, from time to time, and we never really thoroughly discuss it. So I'm going to start with the 10 minutes that I have and speak to Mr. Uno. So, Mr. Uno, starting on page 6 of the report, okay, so I'm wrong, page 7. Number 4, that's got a date of 2003 on it, and it's inactive. Could you just briefly speak to that?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair, this is one of the AMI development applications for a 14-lot plan of subdivision. It's still active because the owners are actually in the process of submitting a revised application for this land, which is on the south side of Wellington Street.
So this would now be considered back to active?
No, when a new application comes in, typically on lands that have an existing application, I'll typically require them to close. If it's significantly different, I'll require them to close the old file and resubmit a new application for council's consideration.
Thank you. Page 9, number 6. Actually, I think that one's okay, thank you. Number 7, that's got a date of 2006, and it is also inactive.
Mr. Muno?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, and I've had some recent discussions with the owners who are considering reactivating and submitting a revised application for that site. And again, if it's significantly different than what council originally approved, it'll be brought before council.
Thank you. So there's conversations going on at the moment. Thank you.
Yes.
Number 8, the same thing, inactive, 2007.
Yes, and this is for a site that's that has a building on it. The application was for just an addition, and the applicant has requested to be held, be kept open. Again, on some of these inactive applications, just for clarity, they're typically inactive, because the applicant landowner is not in a position to proceed. My planners review these applications on a yearly basis, call the owners, send them a letter requesting updated information. Either close the file or give us a reason why you want it kept open.
Thank you. On number 10, number 9, this is something that previous councils have spent a lot of time on. Is there any kind of an update on this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not on this one. Again, it's, we're keeping the file open. There's been a change in ownership over the last number of years.
Okay, I can see I'm boring council, but there's so many inactive files, and it doesn't give us any information without each one of us perhaps asking you separately, and that's a waste of your time. But is there anything on here that you do want to speak to? Anything very old perhaps, or something that might be pending?
Mr. Amuno, do you have any?
No, well, through you, Mr. Chair, as I mentioned, our staff is proactive in speaking to the to applicants, and if they're still, on the list and they're still open, they provided us with valid reasons why they still want their application, open. They're still interested in proceeding at a future date. And again, I try and bring this application status list report to council on a quarterly basis to indicate what's changed and also to indicate the new applications that have been received over the last few months.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. It's just, for me anyway, it's discouraging to see so many applications inactive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Maracus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't go into too long. It's just something Mr. Ramuno said, and I just want to ask him specifically, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ramuno about number 10. You mentioned that the applicant might have an interest in still moving forward, and that's why it's still on the list. So with this one specifically, are they still interested in moving forward at a future date with this hotel?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've over the last couple of years, we've been speaking to a number of different interested parties who are interested in relocating a hotel to town. And this is one site that has an approved site plan. And so we feel it's important to keep it open because there may be a new owner, if not the current owner, who may be interested in this site for a hotel. Because, as you recall, there is an approved, council-approved site plan on this block.
Thank you, and definitely, and I'm just curious because of the way you phrased that last one, so I just thought maybe you might have had conversations with the current owner and maybe there's still some interest there, and that's why I asked that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maracus. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Abel?
Thank you, and it's nice to go over a lot of these. I remember when I first started, I had no idea, but in reviewing now, they're all kind of familiar. I heard the comment that often, as part of an investment development, someone may get the zoning and then look for someone to purchase it. So it's usually a step that doesn't have to be done, and clarity is there for the development and the interest of getting a developer. So I would think that some of the older ones may fall in that category. It's just a comment. And something I've read along, whereas most of the ones later on are a lot of them are active and moving along. So it's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Any other comments to this item? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Move to the last item for discussion, the memorandum from Councillor Peary, item 15, and that was pulled by Councillor Gardner. Or do you want to move it, Councillor Perry? Do you want to second it, Councillor Gardner?
I'll second it.
Wonderful.
I spent a council meeting a long time ago asking a lot of questions, and again, boring everybody to tears. So I just want to know, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Perry, is there anything in here specifically that relates to Aurora that we need to know about?
Councillor Perry, regale us of your time in Sherbrooke.
I would say it's all important for different reasons. One of the major things that came out of this meeting, actually while I was chairing the Environmental Sustainable Committee, a $75 million investment was announced. So that was very good for green funds. We spent a lot of time at this meeting talking about the budget and the requests in the federal budget that we had made. As a group of municipalities, I can go through where we've delivered on those and where we were able to get some big progress made. I'm not sure if that's the most important part, or I'm not sure it's the best use of our time. I'd be happy to talk about that. I'd be happy to provide us with a little bit of information. Maybe at a different point, I can compile another report on what was asked for by the FCM and what was received by the FCM today. One other item that I think is fairly important, the FCM is looking to build up a reserve for when it's fighting legal battles. So that's one issue that's pertinent to us, so that the FCM can interject and contribute to battles that are important to municipalities across all of Canada. So there are lots of different, I'm having difficulty speaking about this generally because, you know, a lot of what we talk about is fairly confidential. Some of the matters that we might speak about, if the federal government were to institute laws around marijuana that really didn't benefit municipalities, if there was funds available to move forward on those fronts to make sure that the municipality has the right to guide itself as best as possible, that's sort of where those funds would go to and the type of fight that we would go to.
Councillor Gardner.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, you spend a lot of time doing this. We spend taxpayers' money, and I would like to find a way that we could make this more public friendly. I mean, I don't think the public is going to sit down and read this, and as I said, I read it very carefully once and really didn't make much headway. So anything that you can think of going forward to perhaps enlighten the public, maybe you being a delegation, and maybe something for council and for the public.
I'd be happy to request, you know, members of the Ontario caucus or even the upcoming president to come by for a delegation. With regards, I can go over some of them now, but if I'm going to speak about what we advocated for and what we received in the budget, I think that's important to do, and I would want to spend more time compiling that than sort of going through a list that I was sent, you know, an hour and a half ago. So happy to follow up with that type of additional information to talk about what was advocated for on behalf of municipalities and what was received in this budget, because there are a lot of really good points and good wins for municipalities that have come out of this budget. And I think that's attributed to the work that the FCM has done.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. And if I'm thinking of either something online or something that you would present at a council meeting, not a general committee meeting, but at a council meeting.
I can work with staff to maybe have something ready for the next meeting. That's not an issue.
Fabulous. I have Mayor Daw next, and then Councillor Abel. Mayor Daw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And our FCM rep, excuse me, is in a similar, if somewhat more overarching position as the regional rep. And I think in that you can safely say that anything goes on at the federal level has some impact on the town of Aurora. It's really the degree to which that impact is felt here, certainly to a lesser degree than what would happen at the region. So I appreciate Councillor Perry's points. I would rather actually at some point, and maybe not tonight, but at some point to have Councillor Perry just give us an overview of what actually happens at an FCM meeting. I've never been to one, so I would be quite interested to know how they're constituted, how they conduct themselves, how they come up with their topics of discussion. I quite appreciate that some of the elements that they discuss are confidential. I'm not looking for information around that, just to get a sense of what goes on, just to see how that might work. So perhaps Councillor Perry at some point would be able to do that for us.
Maybe go through it at council would be better. I have Councillor Abel, then Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Councillor Perry bringing up the FCM, what they advocated for, and the impact of the budget. And I think specifically Councillor Gardner would like to know what exactly Aurora sits in there and how that might work, because sometimes municipalities might mean the northern of the provinces which don't impact us, or sometimes they specifically say funding for subway in Toronto, which may or may not. So if that would be included. And to Mayor Daw, excuse me, maybe one of our off Tuesdays, instead of taking the Tuesday off, you could give a 2 or 3 hour presentation on the workings and goings.
That'll go over real well, I'm sure. Yeah. Councilor Maracas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to go a little bit more with what the mayor mentioned as far as maybe that kind of summary that maybe Councilor Perry can just do kind of a summary, and I'll ask him one specific question. He mentioned about the $75 million that the federal government gave, and if you could just maybe provide in that summary, you don't have to answer now, if you could, that'd be great, how that would be kind of divvied up, how FCM's looking to divvy that up, or look to, which municipalities would are more deserving of that, and how that would work, and maybe you can kind of, and you don't have to answer it now unless you have a direct answer, but maybe you could add that into any kind of summary that you give us and how Aurora can apply for those grants or any possible money that could come towards our municipality. That would be great. Thank you.
Councilor Perry?
Just briefly, it's my recollection that funds are distributed through the Green Monetary Fund, which is a fairly large grant source available to municipalities across Canada to support green initiatives. So, happy to provide more of a robust discussion and presentation next week.
Councilor Marcus?
I was just going to, maybe we could do Councilor Abel's suggestion and have that off Tuesday, and you could do a 3-hour presentation for.
I'm planning on a 10-minute presentation next week.
Okay, any more speakers to the memorandum? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. That ends the items for this evening. We'll move then to new business. I'll start on my left with Councilor Peary.
I was going to talk a little bit about the FCM and the budget today, but I think I'll save it until next week.
Excellent. Councilor Kim.
Yes, through you to, I'm not sure who could address this, maybe Mr. CEO can appoint someone, but I noticed that we have a partnership with Leksand Sweden. There's signs all over the place. I'm just wondering what our last dealing with Leksand Sweden.
Mr. Nadarosny, do you have an answer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I am also curious about that, having seen the same signs and being relatively new to the community. And I suppose, I don't know if Marco would know the latest on that, or who? Oh, looks like Mr. Downey.
Mr. Elliott.
No, Mr. Elliott, they all know.
I'd be happy to take a junket to Leksand, Sweden, and report back.
I think Mr. Downey has the real answer.
Mr. Downey.
So in response to your question, the last time we had an interaction was during our sesquicentennial, and we exchanged, or we actually sent a photograph from the wall, from the mayor's selection from the art show to the mayor of Leksand. So that was the last time in 2015.
Councilor Kim?
Is there an actual reason for the partnership other than just like be pen pals or something? Is there a practical benefit to the relationship, or is it just really just for novelty?
I think it's just what municipalities do. I mean, every city seems to do it, but I don't know if there's, Mr. Downey, do you have an answer for that?
My understanding is it was actually done when Dick Illingworth was mayor. Pardon? Yeah, and we actually sent a hockey team over, and they've actually come to Aurora, but I believe it was an initiative that was brought in during Dick Illingworth and when he was mayor. In fact, there is actually a Leksand Day. My understanding is, I think it's June the 6th, and we used to fly the flag of Leksand here, but that hasn't been done for some time.
Mayor Daw, new business?
And following up on Councillor Kim's point, I've often wondered why a northern town would partner with another northern town. Why not Puerto Vallarta or something like that?
Sounds like an excellent idea.
Seems far more appropriate.
I think there's room for one more, Mr. Mayor.
There's got to be. The Easter egg hunt is this Saturday. We don't have time to wait for PSAs next Tuesday. at the Senior Center from 9:30 to 1 p.m. And I think wristbands are still available. Mr. Downey, do you know? Or are we sold out?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, they're available at both community centers and this desk. They're $5 and parents are free.
It's a great deal. There's, I understand the Easter Bunny will be there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Daw. Councillor Humphreys? Can big kids play? No, I'm just kidding. Councillor Abel? Nothing? Councillor Thompson?
Just a couple things. Recently, we made a change and implemented a program around Town Park to address the GO commuters, but I think we've all seen some emails from some residents with regards to parking in the Town Park. So if I may, through you to Ms. Van Leeuwen. Ms. Van Leeuwen, you know, I'm sure you've seen the emails and had conversations as well. You know, what actions is your department doing with regards to some of the concerns that residents may have about their inability to park at Town Park, or with regards to the fees?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have received numerous comments and inquiries and some complaints. We are monitoring the streets around Town Park to identify any impacts on those residential streets where parking may be permitted throughout the day. There may not be a 2-hour limit, and so has there been a transition of Go Parkers parking at Town Park to those streets? There has been. We have been monitoring them on an ongoing basis. We have 15 available permits at Town Park. 14 permits have been issued to residential property owners to park at Town Park overnight. There is 1 space remaining. Those 14 individuals were here on the first day that those permits were available and were quite satisfied with the program. We've heard a number of different things from different stakeholders. We have been issuing warnings for a period of 1 month, which occurred mid-February to mid-March, and we distributed over 200 door knockers to residential properties. All of those communications invited people to an online survey. The survey closes April 20th, so it's still open. We've had numerous responses to those surveys, and staff will be reporting back on all of those things in May and providing council with information and the outcomes of the implementation of the parking permit program, as well as some options for consideration.
Thank you. And if I may, through you again to Ms. Van Leeuwen. So Ms. Van Leeuwen, when that report comes back in May, if council decides they want to revisit any of the issues, such as the fee for those permits or anything that may or may not be changing, would that be the best time to address it? Or how would you see if council wants to revisit some of the components of that policy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that would be the best time. You would have a more fulsome picture at that time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. On a separate note, I just want to mention that the Run for South Lake is May 1st. If you haven't yet signed up for Team Aurora, please go to the website and sign up and participate. So we certainly, I see some information across the room that only 2 people have signed up for Team Aurora, so we definitely need some more, as well as I hope that lots of people from Aurora and the surrounding area take part. It's a fantastic run, and of course, we've all used the hospital at one time or another, and we all need to help in their efforts to raise funds to take advantage of some of the challenges that they have and help them out. So, May 1st.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. I'm looking at a motion from January 26 about the pre-development tree protection and compensation agreement with Brookfield Homes. I'd like to know whether that agreement has been entered into, and we had an amendment to that motion that that agreement would be placed on a council agenda, as it was the first agreement of that kind, and I thought it would be interesting for council and the public to see that. So I'm not sure who would be giving me an update on that.
Marco, or perhaps the clerk?
Or
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, we'll have to go back to see if all the agreement has been executed at this time. We do execute a lot of agreements, and we'll be tracking to see where we're at on that, and I'll be able to give an update, hopefully, if not by email, by council next week.
Thank you, and it is, unless there's municipal freedom of information problems, it is to be placed on a GC. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Maracas? That is it for new business, then. I have none as well. We'll move then to adjournment. May I motion to adjourn? Councillor Maracas, Councillor Gardner, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Oh.
If I may, Mr. Chair, on, just to give you an update on the federal budget today, lots of money on infrastructure, and I have just sent you all a link from the Municipal Finance Officer's analysis that is written here in Ontario for the perspective of Ontario municipalities. So it may be a more direct read for you than some other sources. I know that you'll be getting lots of emails in regards to this, but this is the Ontario financial municipal perspective. So good reading.